All millennials around the world living in a first world country should not be living with their parents. Period. Why? Because living with your parents really becomes a comfort zone. It becomes a place that stops you from becoming an adult, from growing yourself and taking risks in life. And if you never move away from your parents, and if you don't realize that, you're going to be a man-child for the rest of your life. So listen up.
I think we all have to go into and just trust to like.
So does your life feel stagnant? Does it feel like you're not progressing in your life? Does it feel like you're stuck in your life? That you're not living up to your purpose, that you're not living up to what you truly want to do in your life? Does it feel like you're following up, you're trying to live up to someone else's standards of whether it be your parents or someone else or society, and you feel like there's something lacking in your life, right? Or does it feel like you're held back? Whether mentally, physically, emotionally, financially by someone else, then you should be moving out of your parents' house ASAP. So if you're still living with your parents, this video is perfect for you. And if you're contemplating of moving out of your parents, and if you have already moved out, but you're having a hard time doing the transition, and your parents are still holding you back to some extent, this is also perfect for you because you'll learn how to make the best out of it. So first, let me tell you a story about how I ended up with that conclusion, right? That you shouldn't be living with your parents and no millennials should be. I'm going to start with my story, right? So when I began Nameless, it was a few years ago, I was aspiring to become a coach, a life coach and all that. And I was trying to build a business, but living with my parents really comfortable. And I didn't have any groceries to make. I didn't have to buy any food for myself or all of that stuff. I didn't really take into consideration the monetary aspect of things, right? So this is one aspect that you learn when you move out of your parents' house. When I was living with my parents, I did not have the courage to charge for my coaching, right? And I was thinking, I should charge $1 for coaching. Like this is what I did with my Patreon. And guess how many people got the coaching? Fucking 2 people, right? I got fucking $2 out of that coaching, something like that. Some stupid ass shit like that, right? And it's because by living with my parents, it's like I did not have the confidence to really charge higher prices. I didn't have the confidence, I didn't have the belief that I could make this happen. Now, you may wonder, like, why is that related to living with your parents or not living with your parents, right? Well, because once I was outside of living with my parents, then I understood the cost of life. Then I understood how serious you have to run your business if you want to make a living. When I moved out of my parents, I went on from charging $1 for my stupid coaching to charging $1,800 USD for my coaching. Same exact thing, but I 1,800 times multiplied the price because I was finally in a place where I was able to get out of my comfort zone. I reached a point in my life where I was like, you know what? Enough of this childlike shit. If I charge $1, people are not gonna take me seriously. Gonna think I'm a child or I'm like some idiot or whatever. So I'm gonna charge $1,800 now. And guess what I did? I charged $1,800 and now I'm getting clients. I'm getting way more clients than when I was trying to charge almost for free. How crazy is that, right? And when I was beginning Nameless years ago, I was really struggling with productivity in a way. It was strange because I was living with my parents. I was not working at that time. I was right out of university, sort of the quarter life crisis stage. Like you might have heard my story before. So I just sort of worked on Nameless, like sort of 8 hours a day at like script videos, trying to shoot them, be paralyzed because I was afraid to be on camera, I was afraid to fuck up, and I was a perfectionist and all that, and all these negative limiting beliefs that I had to wrestle through these things. And on top of that, I was not very productive. Sometimes I'd sit in front of a blank screen or I'd sort of work on Nameless, but also do other things and go back on it. And it was really unproductive. And then once I moved out, I only had 1 to 2 hours per day freed up. Why? Because I had to maintain a full-time job at the time when I began. So then I was working on my channel, but I was doing the exact quality and quantity of work than when I was working 8 to 10 hours per day. Why is that? Because I had so little time. I realized that, I had to be efficient. I had to go on, I had to be on my feet. I had to get out of my comfort zone and, produce more, make more, and like not be paralyzed by inaction, by my perfectionism. And I learned to do that when I moved out from my parents' house. And that's why I realized, you know what? I should have moved out as soon as I started Nameless. I should have moved out. Like I should have moved out as soon as like I want to get serious in my life and finally like get on with my purpose, get on with my life. I should have just fucking moved out right away, right? Not only that, by moving out, I learned many things. Like I learned how to cook, right? Who would have thought? I learned how to manage my money. Now I'm really good at managing money, like way more than before. I don't buy stupid shit like I used to. Now I only spend it on things that I actually need. I also learned how to deal with people. I learned how to live with other people. I learned how to deal with toxic, not necessarily toxic, but like passive-aggressive roommates, right? That I had, a previous roommate that I had was pretty passive-aggressive. I learned how to deal with that. And dealing with living with a control freak and all that. You have all these things that you learn, right? Interpersonally that you don't learn when you live with your parents. I'm not the only story like this, right? Like I've also heard so many, I've been on coaching calls with a lot of people, and I hear so many stories of people saying like, they're like 22 years old or even older, and they're absolutely terrified of, leaving their parents' house and like, disappointing their parents, if they do like they study in a field that they don't necessarily approve of. They're absolutely terrified of what their parents will think or what their parents will say. They're absolutely terrified that if they leave their house, that they're never gonna be able to make ends meet, right? And they're like freaking 24, 25, like, dude, you're an adult, you can make shit happen, right? But it doesn't process in their minds because of their fear and all the conditioning that all their parents instilled on them. Now you might be thinking, well, what if like, my mother is sick or my dad is sick and I have to take care of him? Or what if like I have to stay with them because of, for financial reason, I need to support my dad or my mother, like I'm not being a lazy ass, I'm actually working hard. You have all these reasons. Okay, yes, there are exceptions sometimes, okay? And sometimes culture can play an important role in that. I know in the Asian culture, it's normal to live with your parents and actually encouraged to live with your parents because for some reason, I don't know why it is, but it's very common in Asian households that, you live with your parents for a very long time. And actually your grandmother lived with us as well when we lived when I was still living with my parents. And so in certain cultures it's acceptable, right? But it's not because it's acceptable that this is what you should do. It's not because it's something that your culture bestowed upon you that this is something that is optimal for you. For some people, okay, maybe it is optimal, but I would say that for 99% of people, 99% of millennials, it is not. And what about the stigma? What about the stigma of like staying with your parents, you're a lazy piece of shit and you're bad and you shouldn't be staying with your parents, and like, sort of like this shame around it. Shouldn't you be okay with it? Shouldn't you be proud of yourself? Shouldn't you be more self-accepting even though you live with your parents? Yes. Okay, yes, you should be more accepting, more self-loving towards yourself no matter what. But you have to also keep in mind, okay, that it's not a question of self-acceptance or self-love or, not having any shame about anything. It's about practicality. It's about your own personal growth, right? Yes, you can still self-accept yourself living with your parents and, being poor and not having any finances and all that to move out of your own. Yes, you should still accept yourself, but you should still thrive beyond that. You should still thrive towards your personal growth, right? Why the hell not? You want to remain a child for the rest of your life? I don't know anyone who wants to remain a child for the rest of their lives, right? Because most of the people who, go on these consultation calls with me and speak to me, and tell me about all their troubles, everything that they're going through and all the things that they're going through, they tell me, that the number one thing is like, it's simple, but they're held back by their parents. They still live with their parents, they're maybe 19, 20, still held back by their parents. Financially, they don't have the money to move out. Maybe they're still in school, they can't move out or whatever. And emotionally, psychologically, they're held back by their parents. And they want to do something with their life. Maybe they want to start a YouTube channel. Maybe they want to start a musical career. But their parents are telling them this is absolutely fucking garbage horseshit with their boomer mentality of the 1960s of like, grind hard and get a 9-to-5 job, right? Because of this stupid mentality, now they sort of take on this similar mindset, this outdated mindset that worked one generation or two generations ago, but now we're in fucking 2020 and above, right? We need to adapt to the current times, the current state of affairs. So now, to motivate you to move out of your fucking parents' house, or if you're struggling with moving out, you're not sure if you should make the move, I'm gonna tell you right now why it is the best choice you can make, right? So there's fucking construction right now, like a drill in the ceiling. I don't know who the fuck's doing that, but we're just gonna continue on with the video, fuck it. So number one, moving out of your parents' house is an opportunity to prove yourself, right? To prove yourself to yourself that you can fucking do it, right? So imagine you're thrown out into the abyss. You're thrown out into, you were living in a village, in a tribe, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, the young boy now has to go into the wild and, hunt a bear by itself, trying to survive for a month, and then come back. If he comes back alive, he is a man, right? You ever heard of these sort of rituals that like certain tribes had, in the past and all that? Well, that could be you. Right? You can turn your life into something similar to that. Imagine that you're thrown into the wild. You're thrown into the wild, you have to make something out of yourself, you have to make something out of your life. And there are no restrictions, right? There's no guide, there's no there's no mentor, there's no parent, there's no one that's gonna guide you and tell you what to do. You have to learn yourself what to actually do. You have to see for yourself, what do I do now? What the fuck do I do, right? And this sort of self-reliance that you build, this self-discipline, this self-efficacy that you learn, this becomes part of becoming an adult and growing yourself, right? Don't you want to go on a quest and achieve something with your life? Don't you want to go out there and do something amazing, right? Whatever that be. This is your chance. Number two, you do not know what real life truly is until you live on your own, right? Because when you live on your own, you learn things like time management, financial management. You learn how to make food. You learn how to be productive. You learn how to compartmentalize your life in a way that, you learn time management. You learn how to manage your time. I'm gonna work 9 to 5. Okay, so I come back. What do I have to do for the next day? How to be more independent. You learn how to be self-reliant, not relying on your parents to tell you what to do or when to clean your room or when to eat or whatever. You fucking do it yourself. Isn't that amazing? Number three, and this is huge, okay, this is massive, you're no longer held back by your parents' expectations. This is the number one reason why most people, they come on these calls with me and they tell me about how they feel like they're completely lost in life. Why? Because they listen to what their parents tell them to do. They don't listen to what they truly want to do. They don't listen to what their inner voice is telling them about what to do. They listen to what someone else tells them to do. And that other voice is not you, right? And because of, when you're in a certain environment, a certain closed system, whether it be your parents' house or, this is basically what we're talking about. An idea that your parents will implant into your mind will just keep coming back up and back up and back up and back up. And it will just keep, you want to go one direction, your parents are just pushing you to go another way, but you're trying to push through and they're trying to push you back. And that's like the most unproductive of energy spending, right? The most unproductive way to spend your energy, the most sort of taxing, stressful way of using your energy. It's unproductive, it leads to nothing, and it just creates emotional problems and like negativity. And no, you want to say no to that, right? So I remember me when I was beginning Nameless, right? Around that time, and I was done with university. I remember my parents just kept telling me why I had to get a job and why why I should go back to school and study some other stupid thing besides film, because film didn't really give me much of a career, really much studying that. And they were telling me, oh, you should study this, you're good in you're public speaking. Why don't you go back in school and do a bachelor's PhD in psychology and spend the next 7 years of your life in school full time? Why don't you do that? And they kept doing this stupid, like implanting these seeds into my mind. Of course, they didn't say it like that. This is just my interpretation, but that's basically what they were trying to say, right? And they just kept telling me these things, and like it was just completely contrary to what I truly wanted with my life. And you can imagine how that can stifle your inner voice, your own creative voice, if you let that happen over and over and over and over again. Until you let go of mommy and daddy's expectations, you will never truly become an adult. That's pretty much it. If you never let go of mommy and daddy's expectations, you will never truly become an adult, right? Whatever they expect of you, you have to say no and say yes to what you truly want, right? And, yes, at first your parents will kind of, be angry at you for that. They won't hate you, they'll just be angry at you. And they'll say like, oh, fuck, son, you should have gone to school and then all of that. And then you're gonna go on your own path, right? And you're gonna be angry for a bit. And then you're gonna start succeeding. And then you're gonna start being actually happy. And then you're gonna start making, a few sales like I did. And then your parents are gonna have newfound respect for you. They're gonna be like, oh, he can actually make it on his own. He can actually make something happen with his life. Oh, this is actually, you know what? I was maybe wrong. Maybe he should have done that thing. And they might realize that, but whether they do or not, that's not really the goal here. The goal is for your own personal growth and self-fulfillment. Number 4 reason to move out of your parents' house is that you avoid complacency. Complacency is when you see that things are already good the way that they are, and you're like, yeah, you know what, I'm good enough. Life is good enough. I'm studying. I'm getting a B minus in class on average. That's decent enough. Whatever, and you become complacent, right? You don't see things in perspective 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead, and you sort of live in the present or the past. And you're sort of like, yeah, you know what, things are fine the way they are, and I have my degree, and I already had good grades, whatever, everything's fine, right? And then you do that, and that just becomes an issue, because then you're no longer growing, right? And what Robert Greene says, he has a law in the 33 strategies of war. He says one of the strategies is to use the death ground strategy. What is the death ground strategy? The death ground strategy is that basically you put your back against a wall, right? And you have to fight, you have to get out of it, get out of there alive, or you fucking die. Right. So basically, the analogy for that is that they would, I think it was the Vikings or whatever. They arrived at a city that they wanted to conquer, right? They went there by boat, and what they do is that they burn the boats so that they could not retreat back. They had to win this fight or they die trying. So that's kind of what you want to do with your life. When you move out of your parents' house, it's kind of like you're using this strategy in your favor. And when you use this strategy, really your motivation increases, right? The stakes are much higher, so then you go out there, you make fucking shit happen, right? So this is what I encourage you to do. The number 5 reason why you should move out of your parents is that you develop a sense of autonomy, right? Or you could call it a sense of maturity, right? Because you believe that you can achieve things in your life, because you believe that you can make it on your own in life, right? Whether it be financially, resourcefully, whatever, then you build a sense of self-confidence, right? Self-esteem. You build that self-esteem, and with self-esteem comes self-respect. With that self-respect, then, you can start setting boundaries with people, setting boundaries with your parents, setting boundaries, and then you start, and the more that you grow yourself, the more that you learn about life, the more that you mature, the happier that you become, the more fulfilled that you become, the more proud of yourself that you become, and now you can hold yourself as a person, and you have confidence. You also increase knowledge, right? You learn things about life, and not just knowledge in a book, right? You can learn a book. You can read a book at your parents' house and learn all about self-help, still live with your parents. But the problem with that is that you're not applying that knowledge, or you're not putting yourself in a scenario when you can truly apply it, right? So then when you move out of your parents' house, now you have all this chaos thrown at you, and now you can learn to deal with it, and now you can actually apply the things you've learned in the fucking book. You can turn that knowledge into wisdom. Because what is wisdom? Wisdom is knowledge applied through time. Wisdom is the accumulation of knowledge plus personal experience, right? Knowledge plus your own personal experience through time. And the more time that goes on like this, the more wisdom that you acquire, and this is how your life improves. Number 6 reason to move out of your parents' house is that you will get better relationships with your parents. Yeah, how crazy is that, right? Because when something is very abundant, we start to believe that it doesn't have as much value as it has, right? So for example, I remember when the Wii came out in 2006 or something, I remember they were making it incredibly scarce, right? The Wii, like if you want to buy it, you have to be in line and wait for like a whole entire day, and in the whole store they'd only have 4 Wii consoles, and like 80 people will be waiting for it, and then the first people will come in, they get the first 4 Wiis, and the rest of the people, they just get absolutely nothing, right? And it was just absolutely scarce, so then that's why it was so valuable. And going back to living with your parents, because you see your parents every day and they see you every single day, they sort of take you for granted, right? They feel like they can mistreat you. They feel like they can, tell you things that you don't want to hear, and they tell you negative things, or they tell you how you should live your life, and that just becomes a huge burden, right? When you move out of your house, right? All of a sudden, your parents start to miss you. All of a sudden, your parents are starting to tell you, oh, you should come back home sometime, we can make you a good meal, whatever. And they start like to message you back. They want you to come back home, and maybe you go see them once a month. And for some reason, when you come back once a month, they're much nicer to you. This happened to me, right? Like when I moved out of my parents' house, I would come back and they would never pick a fucking fight with me. They would never fight with me. They would never say anything negative to me. They would always be way more supportive, and they'd be so happy to see me because they haven't seen me in a while. So of course, that one time that they see me, they're not gonna be a fucking dick to me, right? Same thing happened with my close friend, one of my best friends. He was having problems with his family, and his parents, his dad, his mom was always telling him every single day at supper, like, hey, so what are you gonna do with your life? Every single time at fucking supper time, they would have this talk. Every single supper time, right? And then he moves out of his parents' house, and then now he's telling me, yeah, since I moved out of my parents' house, my relationship with my parents has actually improved a lot more, right? Same with my girlfriend. My girlfriend, she was living with her mom, and her mom, when the point she was contemplating moving out, she was being, very forceful. She was saying things like, this is how you should, I guess, live your life, or you should be doing this, doing that, or not even that. Maybe it's just like sort of the restrictions that she was putting on my girlfriend was restricting her freedom. So then as soon as she moved out, then all of a sudden, like, she doesn't have as much of these problems anymore. Yes, at the beginning, her mother was messaging her like, oh, be careful with this, be careful with that, you should get back home by this time, where are you right now? And then this went on for maybe 2 weeks, and then now she completely stopped. Now her mother is no longer as restricting, right? No longer as toxic, you can say. So things change when you move out with your parents. Now, let me bust you some myths about moving out with your parents. And some people are like, oh, if I move out, there's gonna be so many problems. I'm gonna have this to deal with. I'm gonna have that to deal with. So here's myth number 1, and let me bust that for you. When you move out of your parents' house, you will actually lose more money, and financially it'll be more difficult. This is totally false. Now, why is that? Because when you move out of your parents' house, first you get out of that complacency, and second, you're using the death ground strategy as I've outlined before, and now you have to make shit happen. Now you're gonna have a fire under your ass to make a lot of money, to make more money, to get a better job, to improve your career, improve your life, so then you can sustain your life, right? It's sort of a blind spot that we have, that you don't know what you don't know until you reach that point, right? So you don't know how much money you're wasting, right? Or how complacent you are until you move out of your parents' house, and you're forced to no longer be complacent, and you're forced to no longer be wasteful with your money. You will not realize that until you actually move out, right? And it's crazy, like, I thought I was being productive when I lived at my parents' house, but oh boy, I wasn't. I was, sitting in front of my computer 8 hours a day. Maybe I'd spend 6 hours of it on social media or like researching random shit. And maybe, 1 hour of it trying to work something out with my work, but procrastinating, and 1 hour actually working on it, right? And for the whole day. But I wasn't being productive at all. And this is the mind trick that we play ourselves because we believe that we're better than we are until we are confronted with a situation that forces us outside of our comfort zone. So force yourself outside of your comfort zone and you will discover so many blind spots that you didn't know that you had. So number 2 myth is that leaving your parents' house is gonna make your parents hate you and resent you. Now this is false. This is false because when you leave your parents' house, yes, temporarily they might tell you, I'll never want to talk to you again, I'll never message you again, which is what my girlfriend's mom told her, which is totally false, of course. They just say that sort of out of fear or out of manipulation to keep you there. And I remember when I wanted to move out of my parents' house, my dad was telling me, oh, how are you gonna pay the bills? You're never gonna be able to make it by yourself. It was just sort of a manipulation out of fear to keep me there. But your parents don't hate you. They're just afraid. And fear can often disguise, and anger often can disguise as fear. Frustration, outbursts at you, often disguises as fear. And that's how parents use their anger most of the time, is out of fear. They will lash at you or they will tell you things or they'll be angry at you just out of fear that you will not be living a good life or out of fear that you will be struggling financially in the future or whatever the fear is. So now that you know why you should move out of your house, and now I've busted the common myths about it, when should you move out of your parents' house, right? When should you move out? When should you make the move? There's really no right time to make the move. It's really when you feel that the time is right. When you feel like your life is stagnant and you're unhappy with your life, now you want to make the move, right? And you want to see how you can do it. When you reach a point in your life when there's no other reason to stay home other than for your own comfort. Yeah, think about that. When you reach a point in your life where there's no real reason to stay at home and live with your parents other than for comfort's sake, right? And I have a friend who's, I'm not gonna say his name, but he's guilty of this, and he's in his late 20s almost, and still living with his parents right now, right? And I feel like this video is kind of for him, but also for all of my clients that or people I've talked to who need to hear that advice. But a lot of these people, they reach a point where they could be moving out of their house. They have money, they even have more money than all of their friends around them. They can make it on their own, but for some reason they're not moving out because they're just too comfortable. And it's not something that they're gonna say. It's not gonna come out of their head, but they're gonna have so many rationalizations like, oh, the time right now is not good because of I still I haven't found the perfect place yet. I want to move downtown, but also I was thinking about moving here. I don't know yet. They have all these rationalizations, or they'll say like, oh, well, it's not that bad, and actually save money, save living with my parents, and I have more time to work on my business, whatever thing. And they're not really working on anything at all, and they're not really progressing at all because they're too comfortable. So personally, I moved out of my parents' house. There was no really a perfect time. It was sort of like I had to make the move somehow, right? I was done with my studies. I didn't clearly have a job lined up yet. So my goal was first find a job and then move out of my parents' house, which is what I did. So I only left my parents' house when I was sort of semi-established with Nameless. I sort of had a direction of where I was going with that. And I had a direction of where I wanted to go with my life, sort of, okay? It was not perfect, but moving out of my parents' house really catalyzed everything to a whole new level. So if you're in sort of that transition phase where you're like, oh, I'm not sure if it's the right move, but I know I would benefit from that, but at the same time, I'm kind of comfortable here, it's probably the right move. Follow your gut instinct, right? You just think 5 to 10 years ahead. Do you want to live with your parents for the rest of your life? No. So then think into the future. Okay, well, 5 to 10 years ahead, I see myself, I don't know, having a fulfilling career and all that. And would that include living in your parents' house? I doubt it. So there's no right time to move out, right? But how do you actually do it? It's very simple. First, you have to set a plan, right? Set up an exit plan. Maybe you don't have the finances right now. Okay, goal number 1, get the finances in check, right? If you need at least a secure, like a $2,000 in your bank account, so you make at least the first month of rent, right, when you move out, and a bit of groceries, whatever, how much that is. If you're new and you're moving out of your parents' house, I'm guessing you're not gonna have that much finances. So look for something cheap, look for something you can afford, and go for like a shitty apartment, because me, when I moved out, I lived in a fucking curtain room. I had a fucking curtain. Now I have a room, because I can afford it. But when I began, it was just a fucking curtain room because, I could not afford anything else. And that learned me to become more resourceful. That learned me, to live below my means and learn how to save money and not spend it on stupid shit, and realize that, you need so little to live. And isn't that such a beautiful thing, that you need so little to live? And this gives you confidence when you live in a sort of shitty environment. It gives you confidence that, it can only go up from there. So think about that, right? Think about that when you move out. Because, I've heard so many stories of I work at a collections department at a bank, and I hear so many stories of 22-year-old girls, okay, that they have a fucking kid, they have a fucking house, and they have a fucking car to pay, and they work at fucking Tim Hortons or fucking McDonald's. And they wonder why they're $22,000 in debt, and now they call me to refinance their debt on a term of 25 years for they pay $10 per month until it's paid off. It's completely idiotic. So don't overstretch yourself, right? You have to set a realistic plan that you can follow through, okay? What does that include? What kind of apartment do I want, right? Do I want to live with roommates, or what kind of roommates do I want, right? Trying to look for that plan. You gotta set out that plan. First of all, set up the finances, right? So find a job in the area that you want to live in. Find a job there. Once you have a job there, then you can probably start moving out. So just go. And then after you have your plan, just fucking do it. Just fucking move out, right? Sign that lease. Call that moving truck company that can, move all of your stuff into the new apartment. Whatever what that is, just fucking commit. Just fucking do it, and you will probably not fucking regret it. Especially if you've been contemplating this for a while. This is probably the thing you should be doing now. So in conclusion, should you move out? Yes, you fucking should. Of course, sometimes there are certain exceptions if you feel like you're short on time and on money, and time and money is incredibly scarce right now, okay? And whether, for example, you're still in school full-time, by the way, you're still in school, and there are other aspirations that you want to aspire to, then maybe it's not time to move out right now, which is fine, okay? Plan your move ahead of time, but you should be doing, sooner than you think, honestly. Especially if you live in sort of like a dysfunctional family, toxic family, move the fuck out right away. I don't care if you're 18, 19, move out right now and deal with the bullshit after. Because just living on your own, or living with a close friend, that supports you, or roommates, or a different environment, that will truly change your psychology, that will truly change your sense of self-confidence, even if it's tough. And you know what? I don't think that school is one of the most important things in life. I think school is overrated, but of course, depending on what you're doing, it's important. But also consider what you're studying right now. Is that truly important? Can I sort of put that aside so I can, make a move and, move towards the career that I truly want, the career of my dreams? I don't know. Ask yourself, what do I truly want? And if what you truly want is not aligned with your parents' expectations, or is not aligned with living with your parents, then you should fucking move out ASAP. And if you need help with finding that self-direction in your life, and if you're struggling with all of what we've talked about in this video, you can book a free consultation call with me, link in the description below. So if you like this video, you're gonna love these next videos about personal development and the series that I have for you. You don't wanna miss this. I'll see you there. People who don't know who they are and who don't understand themselves will never be happy. Because how can you be happy? How can you live a successful life if you don't even understand yourself? Doesn't make any sense. The first